Well, yeah, there's two things with models. They've either got it or they haven't.
They don't necessarily need to be show-offs, but when the moment demands it, they can command your attention. That's what makes a good model. They're engaging when the moment requires it.
In terms of telling the story in its original state, models are the perfect manifestation of from drawing to reality.
The models are the be-all and end-all of it, really. At the end of the day, that's who you see and that's what you see.
You can tell straight away. It's a skin tone, it's a nose, it's the way they look. It's just something, the way they move. I've seen countless thousands of every day, we all do, beautiful women and men in the streets walking up and down, but it's an illusion. They look good at street level, moving, they wear nice clothes. A photograph is different. It's two-dimensional, and you're looking at it not for one split second. You're looking at it and you begin to criticize it. It was dodgy. And a lot of people don't understand that at street level you've got a lot of fine-looking men and women to construct their stuff. Might be all right for film, but for photography, no. And I find that most of the models that I've really liked have been almost an ugly beauty. They have features that photograph well, like aquiline noses, Medici eyes, long fingers, quite ashen faces, dark hair. I've never been into the all bob and gob look, which is like the old blonde bob and the big lips. It's never done much for me.
Attitude, personality, and quirky good looks. And I mean quirky good looks. Classic beauties in the sense of the girl next door don't always make great models.
The one that has the sparkle in the eye. She doesn't have to be the most beautiful person in the world as long as she just has that little bit of spark.
Someone who looked at the picture would be like, oh, this girl is beautiful. She has, I don't know, big lips and beautiful eyes and long hair, you know, like typical beauty. It will be like, this girl is very interesting, like she's staring at you and yeah, she is beautiful, but it's a little bit more. There's a story behind her.
And then character, real character. You are always wary of the girl who thought she was the cutest chick in the nightclub. She usually wasn't a good model. But the girl who had a certain skepticism about this business, who came to it because she already had a job and she was going to try modelling provided it paid her wages. And that was her attitude. This has to be a profession, it has to pay me my wages. Those were the girls who made the best models. And girls with real determination to succeed in the business of modelling rather than just get their picture in the paper every day. You know, you can get your picture in the paper for just being pretty, but you can't take the cuttings into the supermarket and buy coffee with them. So I looked for models with that attitude.
You have to have the passion there. It's like any other job. You have to like what you're doing at the end of the day. It's not what people assume. As you go in, you do your job. The days are very tedious and long, and you have to have a lot of patience with it. You're sitting there getting your hair and makeup done. I know it sounds glamorous and great, but I mean, there could be the likes of today where it's a little bit chilly outside, and especially when you're doing outdoor shoots, you're wearing underwear, or the next spring, summer, like swimsuits, everything in the autumn, winter, you know. It could be freezing cold out, and you have to wear this stuff. But I think that's the great thing about it, because you're in these new places every day. You're traveling around. It's completely different. You're not just having the 9 to 5 job, you know. So the passion is there, but I think the passion comes along with it. You learn to love the job.
It's not an easy job at all, and a certain amount of you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, to coin the phrase. I'd hate anybody to judge me on my looks, and thinking of that, you're living, you arrive in a casting with, I don't know, 50 other models, 100 other models, and you're basically being judged on your looks when you arrive in first.
I think personality is a very big factor. I mean, you could have the most perfect looking model who has just no personality at all, because as a model they have to be able to be themselves in front of the camera, so therefore they have to have something, they're giving something of themselves. If they've nothing to give, they're not going to work. You know, it's quite extraordinary how that actually works, and it is the one thing about modelling is that you have to be able to be yourself without being afraid of how you're going to look.
The big frustration for me is you see beautiful girls, I mean, or boys, there's a couple of great young girls out there at the moment that I have my eye on, you know, but they're not aware of what they're doing. There's no sort of, I can't describe it other than an awareness of, even if they're walking up a ramp or down a ramp, to kind of live in those clothes, take control of those clothes. And the same in front of the camera. Again, it's a huge pressure. Nobody likes being in front of a camera if they don't have to be, but if it's your business, if it's your job, they've got to deliver the goods.
If I was giving any advice, I'd say get a mirror and sit in front of it and practice and move, because there's nothing worse than you know, someone who is beautiful looking. What will sell you is the effort you make on the day.
You need to be a bit creative, and a lot of people in the business look to you as the model to bring something to every shoot and show. The way you stop, the way you look over your shoulder, the way you can make a garment come alive, that's what makes a good model. That's what makes the photographer's job easy. My job as a producer easy.
You can have a model that you know, but the time you've lit her and got good hair and makeup and put a nice dress or something on her, she doesn't have to do anything, because you're doing it. It's going to look stunning just as a portrait type picture. But then if you have someone that you want to do something very haute couture in, or something a bit trendy or whatever, they've got to interpret the brief, just like an actor reading lines. You come on stage then and you've got to actually strut your stuff, and I think that's the same with models.
People will book you just because you know that you'll deliver on the day. There's always going to be someone better looking than you, but how good you are at the job is a huge part of how much you work. Do you mean? If you can't deliver when the pressure's on, do you mean you're wasting everyone's time and money?
I'll always pretty much pick girls who have a chameleon-like quality. Not necessarily the most obvious girls, the most necessarily beautiful girls, but the girls that have an allure, that have something that helps me to tell my story.
What I look for in a model is primarily, the first thing I'm going to look at is height. 5'8" would be the minimum that I'd look for in a girl, and 5'10", 5'11" in a guy. The average size of most guys is kind of in around the 6 foot mark. But for girls, the height is important. I mean, yes, the general population is not 5'8", but designers and fashion people tend to choose girls who are in that height bracket. And particularly for the foreign market, ideally they should be 5'9", 5'10". After that, then it's good, basic, even features, good skin, good hair, and good eyes, good nose, good mouth. And after that, then you look at the personality, a big part of it.
One of the things that I think you need to watch out for going into the modelling business is that however hard the criteria, that you meet them. You know, you can't be a school teacher without qualifications. You can't be a mechanic without qualifications, and you can't be a model without qualifications. And the first one is height. Okay, you'll work if you're 5'6". You might work twice in the year. You might get one big campaign, but you're not going to work regularly and pay the bills regularly.
If I was to give advice to someone who wants to be a model, I would say, first of all, make sure the criteria is right, as you're the right height, you're the right size, because no matter how much we want to wrap it in cotton wool, you have to look like a model. You have to be thin, you have to be pretty, you have to have everything they're looking for. So I think never have unrealistic expectations. And if someone says no, they say no. I mean, if you believe in yourself and you think you can do it, there's always 10 or 15 different agencies out there that are willing to help. So.
And that's the thing too that sort of fascinates. I think, you know, you see girls on the catwalk and you think, oh God, they must be gorgeous in pictures. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And vice versa. You'll get girls who are brilliant photographic girls who just don't come to life or just don't do the job on the catwalk, you know. Here it's sort of less, because I think most do both. But you find if you go further afield to other agencies away, there's girls who just would never do runway stuff, never. Don't have not interested in it, you know. Whereas here I think you have to do both to work.
There are an awful lot of 5'10" pretty girls around, but that doesn't mean they're good models. The model has got to get the feel of what you're showing. There was a Chinese model called Kiki, and she'd do a sportswear show, and she'd be nutty as a fruitcake, and she'd come bounding down the ramp, which is what the client would want. But then she comes and does my show, and she drifts down the ramp. And a model has to be versatile and be able to change her look, change her attitude, and and be able to walk. It's not just a pretty face, and it's sometimes a pretty face is a drawback, you know. It's movement, it's style, it's intelligence.
During castings and going away and travelling around every different country, doing these castings in beautiful foreign locations. It may sound glamorous, but it's not. We're running around cities, seeing these different clients, and we have to look perfect, and we have to look professional. We have to look like we just breezed in through the door, show our book, and act all professional, even though we've just got lost for the past 2 hours and we didn't know where we were, you know. It's not at all what people assume.
It can be getting lonely sometimes. You get homesick, especially whenever if you're living in a flat as well with lots of different girls.
It's not familiar, so it's hard. Like, you have to get your bearings. Always wear the bearings.
Yeah.
Get yourself used to the city and then start working.
Well, I went abroad when I was much younger, during the modelling, and I went to London. I think I was a little bit too young when I went over, because I was refused by most agencies, which was a huge blow to the confidence. But you know, working abroad, I'm sure, is just as exciting as back in Ireland, but I just found Ireland was relaxed. You know, it's because it's so small, you get to know everyone, and it's more of a happier atmosphere, I found.
Since I started modelling, I definitely think I've grown up a bit faster, because you have to deal with a lot of stuff. Like, you have to put yourself out there when you go into castings, go to 10 a day and be rejected every time, and you have to kind of keep yourself strong and not really take anything too personally. And you have to be very independent, because you have to go to New York on your own, live in an apartment on your own with a zillion other girls.
As a model, I think they have to. Models have to get out of here. There's a lovely industry here, a very busy time, as you well know. But I think to make it and to make the money end of it, you do have to get away. Even if it's to the UK, get a good agency there, and they'll, if they're doing their job right, they'll get you further afield. They'll get you good catalogue work. Or if you've become a face, like gorgeous Laragh McCann we were just talking about. She's, you know, the hottest thing on the planet at the moment. And if she's well managed, good modelling agencies are about good management. And yeah, I think it can take you worldwide. One good agency in Europe will establish you in, as far as New York, you know, the Far East sometimes. Do the bread and butter work, get you the big campaigns and the shows, and get your face out there.
I think most agencies are, you know, that's their kind of aim, you know what I mean? It's particularly these days, is to get a girl who's going to work through the kind of ranks and work her way up, and then as soon as she reaches a certain point in her career, they're going to push her, you know, and contact bigger agencies, you know, which then in turn breeds bigger editorial work, and then brings bigger advertising at the end of it, you know.
I do think if you're going to model, if you're young, especially women, because they can start so much younger. Not in Ireland, the market isn't here for it, but when you're abroad, they definitely need supervision. Like, I don't think anyone should be taken into an agency until they've done their leaving cert.
Some girls, like, they start at 13, 12, and they're like, they could come from countries like Belarus, and they go completely on their own, taken by agency, whipped up into this crazy world. And they sometimes have to support their families, so they could grow up pretty fast, and it's hard life.
Being abroad when I was younger as a model was, it was very exciting. I was by myself, there was loads of other girls around me. It was an exciting, interesting time, and I think looking back when you're in your late teens, you think you know everything, but you actually don't. So now that I'm that bit older and I'm travelling, I see some of the mistakes I made or some of the situations I put myself in that were quite dangerous that I didn't quite realise, but thankfully nothing ever happened, so I'm very lucky.
For girls, yeah, I don't think anyone should be modelling. Like, I know abroad, like, they start 15 years of age. I think that's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? At 15, you should be doing your junior cert. Fine if you've got a parent that'll let you do it maybe on a Saturday afternoon, but not anyway doing like the shoots you're on. It's a professional industry.
I think you put yourself in situations that, you know, PRs, as they call them in places like Milan and Paris, always come after the models and say, we're taking you to nightclubs tonight and we're doing this, and, you know, they're buying you free drink, and this is all new and exciting, and they make you feel so special, but they're actually very dangerous situations to be putting yourself in.
I think if you're going to put yourself forward initially to model, it can be cutthroat sometimes. If you're going to go, if you're very young, and they are going to be basically based on your looks. Your personality definitely will come into it, but you have to be prepared to get criticised, because you are putting yourself up for that type of criticism. So I think you can't be too thin-skinned. And
you're so easily influenced.
You should go with the support behind you. If you are going, you should go with support as if you meet a parent or family.
You're by yourself. You're like 17, 18 years of age in a country by yourself, and no one knows where you are. You know, not the agency, not anyone. So that aspect of the industry can be very dangerous and predatory. But other than that, I've relatively found everyone to be great. I've been very lucky. My agencies have always been very supportive and have looked after me very well. So I really have no complaints.
I think the agent's role with the model is very important, because if they don't really understand you or understand how to market you, then, you know, it's not really going to go that well. So they won't know what to put you forward for or not, or what not to put you forward for. So I think it's very important.
If you don't have a relationship with them, like, it's hard to have work and things like that. You have to get on, because you work for each other, you know, it's not just one way. So if you get on with them well, if you're always interacting with them, they get you the work.
Be aware of the agent who says, I have work for you. They do not. Clients have work for you. Be aware of the agent who says, you must give me money to make you a model. They can't make you a model. You either are or you are not. They can help you along the way, and they get handsomely paid for doing so, because they take a percentage of your earnings, usually 20%. So this should be a mutual risk. They risk, you risk, but don't pay them for photographs. If you need to pay a photographer for photographs, that's a different matter. But if you're paying, demand professionalism, just like any client would.
When I was starting off modelling, both Mary and Rebecca, they both kind of mentored me and taught me how to hold myself, and, you know, how to go into a job or a casting, how to be, how to act. And because I got on so well with them, and they took me through all the steps of being a model and how to walk, how to present yourself, who to look up to and things like that. I think it's really important to get on well with them, with your agents.
Yeah, I mean, over the years I've produced hundreds and hundreds of shows and I still get a buzz out of it, otherwise I wouldn't do it. And I would say to models, you must do the same. You must get a buzz out of it, because otherwise it is not a nice business. It's about constant judgment of you, constant rejection of you, constant demands on your time and energy, to be up before the dawn and to be still up sometimes way after midnight because you've travelled down to Cork or to Galway to do a show or to do a shoot. Long hours, you're out in spring clothes, in winter, you're out in winter clothes in the height of summer. You need to really love this. You need to love having your photograph taken. You need to love being a show person without being a show off. It's a tough business.
I think it's tough when you first come in because you get rejection from your casting people, and it's difficult when you get turned away and you know that your friends have got the job, and you're really pleased for them. At the end of the day, you're a bit like, oh, maybe maybe my hair's too long, or maybe, I don't know. I think you have to literally be really strong in your head, otherwise it can get a bit maybe too much.
Who you are.
Yeah.
Before you go out there.
I suppose at the very beginning you do get caught up and wrapped up in the whole thing, and I remember thinking, oh God, yeah, I can make it big in Milan. I can do whatever, and I remember letting myself run away with that for a while, but when you kind of find out that it's not going to happen, then you deal with it and that's it. And so I suppose that's the only thing, because not everybody makes it in the way that they want to make it, or as successful as they hope they would be.
I think maybe for a few seconds it's a bit of a letdown, but you do understand that it's just down to maybe just not for this particular job. You're not right, your colouring's not right, or whatever. So I wouldn't take it personally.
How they, maybe go to 2 or 3 castings and they don't get any of them, so therefore they feel I'm not good enough. Where they need to kind of go to every casting, obviously with enthusiasm, but no anxiety. You need to go to a casting thinking that if you get it, great, and if you don't, you don't. There will be plenty more.
To be good at anything or to go forward, you've got to develop a style that's unique to you. Or if it's not particularly unique, it's a calming factor. I think people will look at a nice photograph or a nice painting, or they will want to sit and eat a nice meal somewhere, or look at someone dressed in nice clothes, if they have a calming thing about them, and they don't shout at you. That's where the classics come in, you see. Anything that's classical never shouts. It's always there, never everlasting.
I mean, a lot of people come straight out of college now and go straight into doing their own thing, and particularly with the whole advent of the digital kind of thing, there's no kind of apprenticeship served whatsoever. There's no kind of studio time done, and even by studio time, even though I don't shoot in the studio for 99% of my work, there's still an awful lot to be learned, and not only that, but also learned about the business by working for a photographer and by learning the tricks of the trade, both in the business and also from a lighting point of view, and just and even general shit like for contacts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there's a couple of photographers, they don't believe in a style, and I kind of used to think that as well. I don't actually have a style. It's it's kind of cool not to have a style, and they're like really, really big photographers in the States, and they would suggest that having a style is conforming to society in some way. They're going, well, I shoot whatever way I want. And that's great if you've kind of, you've made it in that kind of niche market, whether you're advertising or fashion. But if you don't have a style when you're trying to get booked by an agent, it's a little bit tricky. So you need to know, what your kind of plan is before you go to these people to try and get, on their books. They want to have somebody who is a definite article. So there's two ways of looking at it. Some people don't have a style; they just shoot.
Yeah, just kind of play.
In the dark, I can feel your flame burn bright. You've got such a pretty face, but nothing is as it seems. You've got such a pretty face, but nothing is as
I believe I do silly things and dances and shapes and walks and everything to try and tell somebody what I want them to get into. But yeah, I can direct like that. I think if I can make enough of a fool of myself to show somebody what I want to do, they'll be quite comfortable doing it themselves. And to be honest with you, I am quite like, this is really what I want on a job. This is the way I want you to do it. So you'll find me saying a lot on a day shoot, that's perfect, don't move anything but for your left wrist. That's lovely, don't move anything but for your head tilted. So yeah, I can direct and I can control, but if I've chosen the right model, they'll arrive in, they'll just do it all for me anyway.
I get a lot of ideas, I suppose, from music. Listen to good music, whatever you're into. Film, books. It could be a painting in a gallery, might inspire you to do, reproduce it somehow. There's many different ways of kind of looking into it. It could be just, walking down the road, you might get an idea. But it's trying to follow that idea through, and the images that you have in your head, to try and get those across to whether it's for yourself or for a client.
We would get a huge amount of kind of prospective models with ideas of, total glamour, that the whole job is all about glamour and appearing in glossy magazines and in newspapers and whatever. And the actual job itself is not very glamorous.
I blame the media a lot, and I'm talking worldwide, models such as Kate Moss, who's rarely spoken to the press in her life. She's never really given interviews, very few, is hounded by the press, and she is this, uber celebrity purely because of the job she does. And all the media want to know is, who's she going out with? Is she doing drugs? Is she doing this? Is she doing that? Is she getting on a flight to Heathrow? Is she coming in through Heathrow? It's all this kind of mass hysteria media. So on the bigger scale of things, the bigger names in modelling, like her, are chased. Sometimes people or models will court that, and I don't think it's particularly healthy.
When we would see young or new faces coming in, on a Friday morning between 10 and 11 who are aspiring models, we generally say to them that they have to come in with no makeup at all on, because that's what we like to see, and we would take digital photographs of them as they are and take profile shots of them. And if they're grossly uncomfortable with not having any makeup on, and unless we felt that we could teach them how that works, we would not take them on. You know, if the glamour is what they're looking for, then they're not for us, because it just won't work.
The show ponies, Ugg boots, blonde hair and a pair of tits, you know what I mean? All very fine if you want to be dressed up as an M&M handing out leaflets on Grafton Street.
It can put people off. It's sort of the Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan sort of school of, you know, being a personality. It's not always required by a client. There are some who will want that. They want a particular girl because she's well known, or she's somebody's girlfriend, or she does this, that and the other. I personally think it has nothing to do with the fashion industry. End of the day, we're selling clothes, not people, you know. Whatever people do in their own personal time, or whatever they do outside of that, if they want their face in the papers, want their face on television programs, it's fine. But I think the majority of the girls who take their modelling, not their, you know, their actual modelling seriously, you don't really know who they are, you don't really know their names, you know.
This dream is seldom as it seems. I'd give the moon, I'd give the stars, all to stop you looking down as your feet lift off the ground.
Hold out. Mad, straight into camera. 1, 2, 3, hold it. You see, there's only ever one light. This is the people don't understand. I tend to take light away usually in the shoot, rather than if I use two lights, it's two lights that are giving me one general light usually, or I might use them for backlighting and trying to simulate backlit sunlight. And if I have a light in front, it's really only a reflector. But there is basically only one light. Lovely, hold it. Now take it away, Andy. Head this way a bit. Keep going.
When I am putting together a team and it comes to choosing a photographer for a shoot, I tend to look at the photographer's specialities. Mike Bunn is the master of natural light. Mike can take, on the average day, can bring a darkness to a shoot if you want him to, or a steely light. He can use light incredibly well to enhance texture, and he can use light incredibly well to enhance beauty. Mike is the only photographer who has ever complained to me that it was too sunny to take pictures.
Go on. And again. And again. And again. Will it go any higher? I don't like fashion when it gets too trendy. I think it's wonderful, just like pop music that gets into a space age kind of world. It's not simple enough for me. I've always been influenced by the simplicity and the classic imagery of people like Cecil Beaton, Horst, Irving Penn especially, and Avedon. And that whole classic look is coming back again because it is really the great aristocracy of fashion photography.
I would work with somebody like Agata Stoinska for her quirky eye and her great enthusiasm on a shoot, and also to her particular way of using light. So there are different photographers who bring different things to a shoot.
Lovely, hold it there, and looking that way again. Lovely, hold it. Chin down a little. I think part of a photographer's sense of duty, if he's going to be a photographer, has to go and learn the classics. If you want to be a ballet dancer, or you want to be an opera singer, you know, or an artist, a sculptor, you have to go to your art school or whatever, and you learn the classics. That's where you start. Now, the trouble with photography, it's only about 150 years old, and suddenly, 3/4 of the way through the history of photography, we're suddenly told, film is dead, long live digital. That's rubbish.
I always shoot film. Always film.
You know, if you had the option, I suppose, film, but it kind of, you know, the industry these days dictates kind of you shoot digitally, just for speed and the turnaround, you know.
I just don't like digital. It's fine for kind of snapshots and for certain things, and also I think if you're somebody who, you know, your style is kind of more studio based, or a lot of kind of retouching, or a lot of kind of what I consider to be kind of like fantasy kind of work, you know what I mean, which I have no interest in whatsoever, but then it kind of has its place in that, you know. But for what I do, which is a more organic, and what I try to do is a more organic kind of feel to my work, it just doesn't kind of sit very well with me, or very comfortably with me, you know.
I love the methodical way of taking a fashion photograph. Most of the editorial work that I would have been doing maybe about 5 years ago was all 10x8. I'd work a hell of a lot on Polaroid. I'd work on an old 4x5 camera as well. So it's not a case of going bam, bam, bam. It's really standing somebody there. Like it's even like a twist of a wrist, to the placement of a foot, to the movement of the hip, to the tilt on the head. I would take time. Like when you're shooting 10x8 camera, it's a single still. Like you set up a shot and then you go poof, and that's the shot, and then you might tweak it just a little bit more here and there just to make them a perfect shot.
It's hard, you know, but you can usually tell, you know, there's a little bit more depth to film. But if you're shooting the high-end digital stuff, it's so sharp, you know, it's very hard to tell the difference on some images. But it's retouching as well. You can see if it's been retouched too much, it kind of looks bad, you know. So film has a lot more depth, I think, to it, and it's a little more soft. So I you know, if I had a choice, I'd shoot film every day, but I can't. So
through the industry pressures and clients wanting to have things quicker, we've had to move in the line. We've had to go along the way and re-educate ourselves with digital.
Yeah, people want stuff, you know, at the end of the day nearly. It's crazy. So, you know, you have to turn around pretty quickly.
When I was first asked to do it, I found it quite sterile, and I think it was. I could pick out a digital picture a mile away if it was appearing in a magazine.
But you've got to know see, nothing's good or bad other than by comparison. Now, if you're brought up, as from, say, 5 years ago, into the world of photography, and it's digital, you will have automatically not even considered proper photography, which is bad. So you will just notice digital pictures and take it as read that that's the new imagery.
But what's happened, obviously, as technology is getting better, the programs are getting better, and people are getting more used to it, so now it's the industry standard. You can actually make your images look more filmic. So literally what I'm doing is I'm taking a digital image and spending God knows how many hours on it to make it look like an old 10-8 Polaroid or an old 4x5 shot. So I'm trying to bring back in what I used to do 5 or 6 years ago, but doing a digital sense. Like no matter what image I take now, if I shot a Polaroid or whatever, I'd say within one stage it's going to be scanned digital and sent out.
I think the medium of photography is primarily black and white, always was, and that's why I think black and white photography, whether it's digital or not, should be shot with film, you know. But I think what the digital age can do, if you understand the old photography, is it can make you a much better photographer, because you've already got hidden under your belt your knowledge of the classical photographic technique.
I think the Irish fashion scene has actually come on leaps and bounds, and I think there's a lot of Irish designers that are out there at the moment that are up and coming, and they're producing really interesting work, and you know, something that it's going away from kind of the old idea of Ireland as well, where it was kind of quite very formally knitwear and very Celtic, and there's a lot of designers that are more couture now, and they're really being experimental in terms of their shapes and their designs and tailoring. And I think tailoring is probably one of the most important thing for a designer. If they're a good tailorer, then I think that's where they'll have their success.
In truth, in the 80s, we had a tip of an iceberg that was fashion, real fashion, but the bulk of the iceberg was about clothing. And nowadays, that reflects the market on the ground here too, the difference between the Irish and the international market. Most fashion influence is external. It's not indigenous here. The indigenous fashion industry is very, very small. It struggles, and in global terms, it's inconsequential, to be honest.
The fashion industry has evolved with the helps of the Dublin Fashion Week and stuff. I think that's a great idea. But I think at the same time you have to realise the size of our capital and the population we've got. I think the city would have to expand a hell of a lot more to get to the dizzy heights of a New York or a London or a Milan or a Paris.
We don't have anybody here who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Yohji Yamamoto, with Yves Saint Laurent, with Rai Kawakubo, with Valentino, with Calvin Klein. We don't have people with the big budgets and the deep penetration that those brand names have.
I would love to think that we could have a big, but I don't think we've got the population. And again, it goes back to that same story of no indigenous manufacturing. Labels are smaller, they struggle. They really need to show in a bigger forum in order to gain recognition for their work. And I just don't believe that the international buyers will make. There are very few Irish designers make it manufacturing, and I'd love to think that we could, but I don't really see it happening anytime soon.
The big challenge for Irish fashion now is globalisation. There is no indigenous fashion industry here. Most of our designers, if not all of them, get every stitch made abroad. There is, though, in the background, an incredible body of talent that is still regarded under the general title of craft. There's no shamroguery about this. I'm not talking about elves and leprechauns here. I'm talking about wonderful weavers, jewellers, milliners, and accessory makers. And they are being promoted by, in no small way, by people like the Leitrim Design House and Louth Craftmark. And if they were in Italy, they'd be regarded as artists. And here, I'm afraid they're still dismissed, and that is to our great shame. You have incredible jewellers like Erica Marks. You have great milliners like Lena Steen. You have jewellers like Martina Gillan in Sligo. And, you know, if we could encourage these people, then we will bring to market what the market needs right now. The market needs a little touch of luxury and a point of difference. And we have a huge, rich heritage of that here. If only we can bring it forward and present it, shine a light on it, and let buyers touch, feel and see it.
Don't leave me alone to hide away in corners of my mind. Give your soul.
Yeah, well, to model starting, I think it's very different nowadays. There is such a competition out there at the moment. You know, you've got to always, I think what stands out nowadays is if a model is professional, you know, you're going to already be a step ahead of everyone else, because there's so many models out there. If you arrive on time and looking well groomed, you know, you're not out partying the night before a shoot or anything like that. I think that makes a huge difference. I also think you've got to have a good rapport with any of your directors or the team as well. You've got to get on well with them. You've got to be animated. Your personality has to shine through, especially in castings and go-sees. that's how you're going to win, if your personality shows through.
If I was giving advice to young models, I would say to kind of work on themselves, and it's never about you, it's always about, you know, it's never about how you look all the time. It's about how the clothes look, it's about what the client wants, it's think of the product you're advertising, think of the job you're on that day, and try and always be as professional and courteous as possible.
But I suppose it's also just like, you know, having a comfort zone that you can get up in front of 5,000 people and walk and make sure that you're walking strong, tall, and also very naturally at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It's like when anyone, you know, puts a camera on you or looks at you, you find that your body position or tension changes completely.
I recommend a girl starting out in modelling is to test a lot, do a lot of tests, which are unpaid shoots you do for experience and for material for your portfolio. So maybe just to test a lot with different photographers and get around to meet a lot of the people working in the industry. And then hopefully, if you're able to go abroad and kind of gain knowledge and experience of the industry in different markets.
I think my main advice to young girls would be, if you're finding it extraordinarily tough, I think it's not worth it as a career. But I think any career in the world that you're going to do, you're going to find tough. You're always going to have to work hard. From the aspect of rejection, I would say that, you know, in every job you'll go for 10, 15 job interviews. You're never going to get it straight off the bat. And that's the same as modelling. It's like every casting is an interview. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. They're not criticising you personally, and it's so important for young girls to remember. And just to try and keep your spirits up, and it's important to surround yourself with good people and keep yourself grounded as much as possible.
The beauty of modelling is that models do choose. They choose to stay in it, they choose to leave it, but at the end of the day, it is their choice, you know. Nobody can make you or force you, because you are the principal in the whole affair. I mean, as an agent, I represent models, but they are employing me to act on their behalf, as opposed to me being the employer. I'm really, as an agent, I'm a go-between between the model and their clients, to negotiate their rates, to advise them on what to do and what not to do, you know, what to put in their book and what not to put in their book, and how to develop the book and how to develop their careers. But ultimately, the choice is theirs.
I made this to save this. What makes you think I'm afraid of you? But I don't really care for your point of view. But you like this, and it's pointless. And when I think of all the things you do, but all you really want is something new. It's not easy to break free from this maze that you've put me through, but what am I supposed to do? With the silence, it makes no sense to play the cards I've been dealt by you, and it's not a game for me or a game for you. It's not wrong.
I've made my best friends in the industry. Like, and the people from, you know, it's not just, you're not all just from the one area. All of us have very different backgrounds, but, you know, it's just like we all have a common interest or a common love, and we do. And the people I work with, they're amazing at what they do, but they love it. And there's a, you know, it's not just a look. There is a work ethic to it. But we have the best fun ever. Like, the amount of times you sit around and you appreciate how lucky you are, and it's said.
Well, my big thing is that if a woman walks into a room wearing one of my dresses, if somebody says, "Oh, that's a fabulous Richard Lewis," I failed. If somebody said, "Oh, doesn't Mary look great?" then I've succeeded. I want my clothes to make women look brilliant.
Not many people my age from Ireland, I think, could have this experience. You get to travel everywhere, meet so many people, work in the most amazing shoots, do shows, just it's just so amazing. You learn so much about people, just how to work with people, how everything works, how the art, and I think I'm going to be prepared pretty much for any job after this. You'll know how to work with people, I'm mumbling.
The market responds to two things. It responds to lifestyle imagery, and within that lifestyle imagery, it responds to emotion. That's what it responds to. And how do I give you an example of that? Well, if you hold up the right picture of a baby, everyone goes, ah. And it's as simple and as naive and as effective as that.